Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning Five here on Friday, April 6, 2018. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Alex Gleitman. Jonah Booker is on assignment. He's on vacation. We're not going to just BS you. He's on vacation. Alex, let's start with talking about Urban Meyer's contract extension. We knew that was coming. Gene Smith announced that early in spring ball. In fact, it might have been back on signing day that Urban was going to get a 2-year contract extension. But now we know the details. And it's interesting because for a while, Jim Harbaugh was the highest paid coach in the Big Ten, making $7.5 million per year. Well, voila, now Urban Meyer's making $7.6 million per year, $1.2 million raise. Obviously well-deserved. There's no reason he shouldn't be the highest paid coach in the Big Ten. He's also the third highest paid coach in college football. Just your thoughts on Urban Meyer's contract.
No brainer. The only thing I would say is Ohio State fans probably wish it was more than a 2-year extension. But no, I think it's a good sign. There's been a lot of talk, whether it be rumors that Dabo Swinney telling Jackson Carman that Urban's retiring soon, or just people in general saying Urban has X amount of years left. I think this is a great sign for Ohio State that Urban Meyer's committed to the long term of this program. That's something I've been hearing. I think from what I've understood that he's found a great work-life balance, and that's obviously key for him as far as not burning out the same way he did it at Florida. And some people, they always say, we want Florida Urban Meyer back, but would you want Urban Meyer for 2 more years, or do you want Urban Meyer for potentially 8 to 10 more years? And I think most people would want the latter. I think he has Ohio State competing for national championships year in and year out. I think he's going to continue to do that. Again, no-brainer for me. This was a tremendous win for Ohio State. It's obviously a big win for Urban Meyer. And it's going to be great to see this era extended at least a little bit longer. Fans should definitely soak this all in while it's happening, because who knows what's next.
Yeah, exactly. This is the golden age of Ohio State football, especially when you have the Jim Tressel era, which was fantastic, and then you piggyback that with Urban Meyer era, which so far has been, at least as good, maybe better. When you look at the winning percentage, they each had 1 national championship. I get that Tressel had a lot more Big Ten titles, but also he didn't have to play in the Big Ten championship game is a lot different. It's just, there's no getting around. This is the golden era of Ohio State football. All right, so a little bit more on Urban's contract. As we mentioned, 2-year extension. For those that don't know, he was already signed through the 2020 season. He was making $6.4 million per year, so he was not poor. He's just richer now, and they tacked it on through the 2022 season. So that means if he stays through the life of the contract, Alex, he will stay 5 more seasons, including the 2018 season. 5 years on his contract. Will he stay those 5 years? Will he stay longer, less? I know this is the $1 million question, or shall we call it the $7.6 million question. Will he stay for the life of this 5-year contract?
I think he will. I think he absolutely will. I don't see him, unless something unforeseen, health-wise or family-wise or something along those lines happen. And knock on wood, obviously God forbid that happens to anyone, but I don't see him leaving Ohio State's head coaching position before that happens, before those 5 years are up, I should say. I think he's got at least 5 more years. That would, I think, put him at, if I'm not mistaken, about 11 years as Ohio State's head coach. I said when he took the job it would be an 8 to 10 year stop for him, and then I thought that I still think this is going to be his last job, and I still believe that. I think he's going to, as he gets closer to that 2022 year, I think he's going to start to assess how he's feeling. He's still a relatively young guy, and he could go beyond that, but I think he's at least getting to 2022. I think as you get closer, if he plans on calling it quits, I think that's going to be it for him. I think he's going to enjoy he might have multiple grandkids by then. Nate will be out of college. So he'll enjoy time with Shelley and time with the kids and time with the grandkids, and I think he'd help Ohio State kind of groom the next coach or help them find the next coach. But I think he's here for at least 5 more years, and then he'll see how he feels after another 3 or 4 or so.
I love your optimism, and I hope you're right. And I think you might be right. Before we move on to not linebackers, but running backs, I want to finish the show talking about running backs. We talk about linebackers like every day on the show. We're actually going to take a break from that. But one more thing on Urban's contract. It's interesting to me. I find this funny. No coincidence here. Jim Harbaugh was making $7.5 million per year as the highest paid coach in the Big Ten. Urban's making $7.6. It was almost as if like, all right, what's Harbaugh making? Yeah, give me just a little bit more than that, and we're good.
I'm sure that's how the conversation went between Urban Meyer and Gene Smith. It was, this guy needs to be the highest paid coach in the Big Ten, and as we said, as he should be. I don't think, if anything, it should be Urban Meyer and then probably James Franklin or Mark D'Antonio number 2. Jim Harbaugh right now, as far as performance goes, should not have been the highest paid coach in college football in the Big Ten, and so rightfully so, Urban Meyer is back on top.
All right, running backs, as promised. It's interesting. I mean, it's a great problem to have. It's a lot like the quarterback situation. Like, we can, talk about it all day, but bottom line, it's a good problem to have, quote-unquote problem. But running back, with J.K. Dobbins back, with the best freshman season in Ohio State history, maybe if Clarett would have stayed healthy, he would have had a better win, but let's remind everybody, J.K. Dobbins, a little over 1,400 rushing yards as a true freshman, averaged 7 yards per carry, over 7 yards per carry. So just that alone, you're thinking, that guy's coming back as a sophomore, he's going to be even better. You've got to ride a guy like that, right, Alex? I mean, 1,400 yards as a true freshman, 7 yards a carry, going to be even better. Have to ride a guy like that. But you also have Mike Weber, who has 1,000-yard season under his belt a couple years ago. He's even better then. You have to think he's going to be even better than he was last year. You have Antonio Williams. You got the 2 true freshmen. How is this going to break down in your estimation with the running back touches?
I'll tell you this. I do not envy Tony Alford one bit in having to make the decisions of who's in that football game. I will say, I think J.K. Dobbins is your starter. I think he's definitely going to be kind of, quote-unquote, the guy. I think Mike Weber is going to have a heavy role. And despite great reports from Antonio Williams and despite everything I'm hearing on Master Teague and despite what I know about Brian Snead, and then you got guys like Demario McCall and Jalen Gill and Parris Campbell who could be in the mix for some touches. It's a lot of bodies in there, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to be the J.K. Dobbins and the Mike Weber show, a little bit of thunder and lightning right there. I think with, no matter who the quarterback is, really, I think the quarterback's going to be running a lot less than it has in the last few years with J.T. Barrett behind center, and I think that allows for more carries for the running backs. I think it's always hard. It's like you're always going to be second-guessing it, right? It's going to be like, oh, if Weber was in that game, he could have got that first down. If Dobbins was in the game, he could have, juked that guy and broke it off for a 70-yard run. I think you're going to have a lot of that from the fan base. Alford and Meyer are probably going to be thinking about a little bit, but you got 2 great backs. You got to use them, and I think they're going to keep them both fresh throughout the year as much as they possibly can because, come November, hopefully for them, come December in the Big Ten championship and then the college football playoff, you're going to need to ride those guys the same way they rode Zeke in 2014 and then early 2015. So I think it's a great problem to have, as you said, and I think Weber and Dobbins are going to, continue to carry the load for the backfields.
With the 3 veterans, with Dobbins and Weber and Williams, conventional wisdom would say you'd redshirt at least one of the true freshmen, but these are really, really, really good true freshmen. And I know Teague's coming off an injury, but he also is enrolled early, so that gives him kind of a leg up. And then, Snead is higher rated than Teague, but he's not enrolling until June. I don't know. I know the plan is not to redshirt either of these guys, but I guess conventional wisdom would lead us to believe one of these guys is probably going to redshirt, right?
I would have to assume so, and right now I'd have to say it's Snead, and it's not fair because he's not on campus yet, but at the same time, Master Teague is tearing it up right now in the spring from everything I hear. Everything from Maratti's winter conditioning program in the weight room to early spring drills to padded spring drills to the circle drill. Just all the reports on this kid, and he's not even 100% healthy, that's the crazy part, is that he's the real deal. Or at least he looks like the real deal right now. And so I think he'll probably play a little bit in blowouts. I think he'll play primarily special teams. I think Antonio Williams will obviously be the first guy to get touches after the 2 horses. But yeah, I can't, you're almost like playing a guy for the sake of playing them. And I know the whole theory is, well, Brian Snead's not going to be here 5 years anyway. He's probably that good. And so I get it, and you should try to get him touches here and there. But I think the smart thing, especially knowing you could lose J.K. Dobbins after next year, especially knowing you're likely going to lose Mike Weber after this year, is to save a year of eligibility for at least one of those guys and kind of give yourself a little bit of room for the future.
And last thing, H-back. Parris Campbell obviously coming back as a fifth-year senior. They used K.J. Hill there last year a little bit. I mean, I think he's kind of miscast there. I mean, I know it's like they kind of use him in like kind of a different role as an H-back when he's in there, but he's more of a true wide receiver to me. But you look at, Parris Campbell, Demario McCall, K.J. Hill, maybe one of the running backs, will get some reps at H. How do you see that breaking down this year, the very important H-back position in the Urban Meyer offense?
Yeah, I think you're going to go back. I think it's going to be Parris Campbell as kind of the main guy in that role, and I think you're going to see him take on more of a role that like Jalen Marshall had in 2014 and 2015. I don't think it's going to be like it was with Curtis Samuel, who was, I'd say, primarily running back and then was able to play receiver and kind of run those things. I think it's going to be primarily receiver with Parris Campbell, a guy who's able to take jet sweeps, a guy who's able to take pop passes and quick screens and things like that and be able to, get the ball in his hands and let him go. So that's kind of how I see things playing out. I think they could kind of mix things up a little bit using Demario McCall, pending that he's healthy and all those things, which it seems like he is. And I think they can do some of the things they did with Curtis Samuel with Demario, motion him into the backfield, use counter, things along those lines, which is nice to be able to have kind of two guys who can play that position in two different ways. So, I'm definitely interested to see how they use those guys. I think those are going to be your primary H-backs. I think they're definitely going to get Jalen Gill on the field in some capacity this fall, and I'm curious to see what he can do because he's an extremely talented guy, and I think he was, built for that H-back position. He is very similar to Curtis Samuel in how they could use him. So I think they got a ton of talent there, and, I'm excited to see what Parris Campbell can do, especially given that he's the guy, number one guy on the team for me that has home run ability on any single play.
Great stuff as always from Alex Gleitman. Thank you very much, Alex. Welcome to all the new listeners from the Scout Network who are now part of our family of Bucknuts. What a happy reunion. So welcome to all of you who are listening to the show for the first time. Good to have you. Thank you to all our loyal listeners out there. Great to have you, of course. Hope everybody has a great day and a great weekend. Let's hear that Buckeye swag. Best damn band in the land.